The great hall of the Galactic Assembly stretched for miles in every direction. Floating platforms held representatives from 347 different species. Some breathed oxygen, others breathed methane. Some had scales, others had feathers, and some were made of living crystal. They had all gathered here on Centrum Prime for one purpose: to decide the fate of humanity. Ambassador Catherine Moore stood alone on the human platform. She was a tall woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and calm brown eyes that revealed nothing of what she felt inside. Behind her, a holographic image of Earth rotated slowly, showing the blue oceans and green continents that had given birth to her species. High Arbiter. Zelkoth raised his crystalline hand. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived race, and his voice echoed through the translation devices that allowed all species to understand each other. "The vote is complete," Zelkoth announced. 291 species have voted in favor. 56 have voted against. The motion passes. Earth and all human colonies are hereby exiled from Galactic Union space. Humanity has 90 cycles to remove themselves beyond the Outer Rim. All trade agreements are cancelled. All diplomatic relationships are ended. Catherine did not cry. She did not shout. She simply nodded once, as if she had expected this outcome all along. The charges against humanity had been many. They expanded too quickly, claiming new worlds faster than species who had been spacefaring for thousands of years. They asked uncomfortable questions about the Union's history that no one wanted to answer. They refused to share the secrets of their faster engines. They insisted on protecting worthless planets that other species wanted to strip for resources. But Catherine knew the real reason. She had seen it in the eyes of delegates who flinched when humans walked past. She had heard it in whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. The elder races were afraid. Not because humans were violent or cruel, though they could certainly be both when pushed. No, they were afraid because humans learned too fast, adapted too quickly, and never stopped asking why. "You have made your decision," Catherine said. Her voice was steady and clear. "We accept your terms." She gathered her documents and walked toward the exit. Every eye in the vast chamber followed her. At the door, she paused and turned back one final time. "We came to you with open hands," she said. "We wanted nothing but friendship and fair trade. You chose fear instead." She smiled, and something in that smile made several delegates look away. "Remember this moment. Remember it well." Then she walked out, and the doors closed behind her. Commander Daniel Harris was waiting at the airlock when Catherine returned to their ship. The Horizon's Edge. He was a broad-shouldered man with a face that had seen too many battles and eyes that had watched too many friends die. "The news is already spreading," he said. "Every human ship in Union space is asking what to do." "Tell them to begin withdrawal," Catherine replied. "Orderly and calm. No incidents. No delays in the colonies. Evacuate the people first. Then any equipment we can move. Everything else stays behind." Catherine walked toward the bridge. "Let them see what we built. Let them wonder if they made the right choice." Daniel followed her. "You knew this would happen. I hoped I was wrong." Catherine sat down in the captain's chair. "But yes, our intelligence suggested this was likely. Admiral Cole has already positioned our main fleet beyond the rim. The Council will see that as a threat." Catherine turned to look at him. Her eyes were hard now, like stones. "They just told 8 billion people that they are no longer welcome among the stars. They do not get to complain about how we respond." The withdrawal began within hours. Human ships appeared from every corner of Union space, heading toward the Outer Rim in a steady stream. Colony transports carried millions of settlers who had built new lives on alien worlds. Cargo vessels held equipment and supplies that had taken decades to accumulate. Personal ships carried families who had never known any home but the stars. The elder races watched with relief. The human problem was being solved. The threat was being contained. Life could return to normal. But some observers noticed something strange. The humans moved with perfect coordination. There was no confusion, no panic, no arguments about who should go first. Information flowed through their networks faster than Union bureaucracies could process a simple form. Resources were shared without question. Ships that had never met before worked together as if they had trained for years. It was not the behavior of a defeated people. It was the behavior of people who had planned for this moment. On Centrum Prime, the Zelkani High Council celebrated their victory. The Morthani Collective, a species of warlike reptiles, immediately began expanding into territories that humans had protected from conquest. The Veth Consortium, whose entire economy was based on predatory lending, started foreclosing on debts that human advocates had kept frozen for years. No one noticed the small drones that humans left behind. They hid in asteroid fields and dormant satellites, watching and recording everything. No one wondered why the humans had given up so easily, without even arguing for a second vote, and no one imagined what humanity might become once they were free from Union rules and Union restrictions. Catherine Moore watched the last human ship cross the border into exiled space. She stood on the observation deck of the horizon's edge, her hands clasped behind her back. "It begins," she said quietly. Beside her, Daniel looked out at the stars. "What do we do now?" "We survive, grow. We remember." Catherine turned away from the viewport, and we become something they never expected. In the darkness beyond the rim, lights began to appear. Human ships finding each other, forming groups, building the foundations of something new. They had been cast out from galactic civilization, told they were not wanted, not welcome, not worthy of standing beside the elder races. They would prove them wrong, not through war or conquest, not through revenge or destruction, but through the simple, stubborn human refusal to accept that any challenge was too great, any obstacle too large, and any door truly closed forever. The Galactic Union had voted to exile Earth. Humanity did not hesitate. They had work to do. 5. Years had passed since the exile. In that time, humanity had not died. They had not faded away. They had grown into something the Galactic Union could never have predicted. Admiral Patricia Cole stood on the observation deck of the Constellation, a ship so large that it served as the mobile capital of what humans now called the Stellar Compact. Through the massive windows, she could see thousands of vessels drifting in formation around her. There were cargo ships and warships, mining vessels and research stations, hospital ships and factory ships. A civilization in motion, wandering through the unexplored regions beyond the rim. "Status report," she said to her aide. "Lieutenant Kevin Park. He was young, born on a colony ship during the Exodus. Part of the first generation that had never known life in Union space. All sectors reporting normal, Admiral. Food production exceeded targets again this quarter. Engineering says the new engine designs are ready for installation across the fleet." Kevin paused. "We also received another refugee request." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Which species?" "Valtheri. About 12,000 individuals. The Morthani are claiming their homeworld. Valtheri were insect-like beings who communicated through scent and gesture." Patricia remembered them from the exile vote. They had voted against humanity. But she also remembered what her grandmother had told her. "Holding grudges only weighs down your own heart. Accept them," she said. "Full integration. Send them to the Henderson Group. They have been asking for more workers in the farming sections." Kevin made a note. "That brings us to 17 species in the fleet, Admiral." 18. "The Garati accepted our invitation this morning." Patricia turned back to the viewport. Beyond the rim, space was different. The Union had marked everything beyond their borders as dangerous and forbidden. Humans had found it full of wonders. Abandoned stations from civilizations millions of years dead. Worlds covered in strange forests that sang when the wind blew. Asteroid fields rich with minerals the Union had never discovered. Out here, humanity was free to be itself. On the research vessel, Curiosity.
Dr. Linda Walsh was having what she called a very strange day.
The artifactor team had recovered from a dead world, was doing impossible things. "Run the scan again," she told her assistant. His name was Christopher, though he had been born with a Valtheri designation that human throats could not pronounce. He was one of the refugees who had joined the fleet 2 years ago. and he had become one of Linda's best researchers. Christopher's antennae twitched as he studied the results. Same readings, Doctor? The energy patterns match nothing in Union records. But these symbols on the surface, he traced the glowing marks with one of his 4 hands. I have seen similar patterns before. In human archaeological databases. From Earth, Linda felt a chill run down her spine. That is impossible. Humans were still living in caves when these artifacts were made, perhaps Christopher said carefully. Someone has been asking the wrong questions about where humans came from. The artifact pulsed with light, and deep within its ancient core, something began to wake up. While humanity thrived in exile, the Galactic Union was learning what they had lost. Without human traders willing to do business with anyone, regardless of politics, goods stopped flowing between hostile species. Without human engineers willing to work on unglamorous projects, ancient space stations began to break down. Without human voices arguing for fairness and justice, the weak were crushed by the strong. The Morthani expanded their territory by 40% in 3 years. They conquered species that had existed peacefully for millennia. The Veth Consortium foreclosed on debts across 100 worlds, reducing entire civilizations to economic slavery. The Zelkani, the oldest and most powerful species, watched it all happen and did nothing. High Arbiter Zelkoth received weekly reports on the human situation. Each report troubled him more than the last. The exiles were not struggling. They were flourishing. Their population had grown. Their technology had advanced. Long-range sensors showed human ships using engines that moved faster than anything in the Union fleet. Their weapon systems operated on principles Union scientists could not understand. We should have destroyed them. The Morthani ambassador growled during a closed council session. When they were weak, before they left, Zelkoth remembered Catherine Moore's smile as she walked out of the assembly hall. He remembered the certainty in her eyes. I believe, he said slowly, that opportunity never existed. At the edges of Union space, human ships began appearing. They never crossed the border. They never threatened violence. They simply waited, and when refugees from Union oppression came looking for escape, they were there to offer passage. Word spread quietly among the oppressed peoples of the Union. If you could reach the border, the humans would take you in. They did not care what species you were. They did not care how you had voted during the exile. They only asked if you were willing to work, willing to learn, and willing to treat others with basic decency. Thousands came, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. Each one brought skills and knowledge and perspectives that enriched the growing compact. Each one had stories of Union cruelty that reminded humanity why they had been right to leave Patricia. Cole welcomed each wave of refugees personally when her schedule allowed. She remembered her own grandmother, who had been forced to leave Earth during the Exodus, who had told stories of the home they had lost. We built something new, Patricia told a group of newly arrived Velthari. Not a copy of the Union. Something better. A place where what you are matters less than who you choose to be. The Velthari listened. Some were suspicious. Some were hopeful. All of them were desperate. You are home now, Patricia said. If you want to be. One by one they did, and humanity kept growing. They built new ships and new stations. They developed new technologies. They made alliances with species the Union had abandoned or forgotten. They trained their children not just in science and engineering, but in history and philosophy, so they would understand why freedom mattered and why fear was the enemy of progress. They did not forget the exile, but they did not let anger poison them either. They had better things to do in her quarters on the Constellation. Patricia Cole looked at a photograph of Earth. She had never seen it with her own eyes. None of the younger generation had, but they all knew what it represented. Home was not a place anymore. Home was an idea. Home was what you built together with the people who stood beside you. The Union had tried to make humanity disappear instead. They had made humanity stronger, and somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, ancient machines were beginning to stir, drawn by signals that had not been broadcast for millions of years. Something was coming. Something that would make the petty politics of the Galactic Union seem very small indeed, but that was a problem for another day. Today, there was work to do. 10 years after the Exile, a single small ship appeared at the edge of Union space. It carried no weapons. It made no threats. It simply broadcast a message on every frequency, over and over again. This is Ambassador Catherine Moore of the Human Stellar Compact. I request diplomatic contact with the Galactic Union. I come in peace, carrying a warning. The message sent shockwaves through the Union. Catherine Moore had been declared dead years ago, lost in an accident that no one had questioned. Yet here she was, alive and asking to speak. After much debate, Union allowed her ship to dock at Centrum Prime. Heavy guards escorted her through the same corridors she had walked a decade before. She looked older now, with more gray in her hair and deeper lines around her eyes. But she walked with the same quiet confidence, the same steady calm that had unnerved delegates 10 years ago. The assembly hall was full when she arrived. Every species that had voted for Exile wanted to see what the humans had sent. Catherine stood alone on the speaking platform, just as she had on the day of Exile. The holographic image of Earth still rotated behind the empty human delegation area. No one had removed it. "Thank you for seeing me," she said. "I will be brief. 14 months ago, our exploration ships encountered something in deep space. We call it the Silence. It is a machine intelligence older than any civilization in this galaxy. And it is coming this way." The hall erupted. Delegates shouted accusations. This was a trick, a lie, a manipulation. Humans wanted revenge, and this was their scheme to get it. Catherine waited until the noise died down. "I offer no proof that you would believe," she continued. "I make no demands. This warning is given freely because we would warn anyone facing extinction. What you do with this information is your choice, as it always has been." Then she turned and walked out, just as she had 10 years before. The guards made no move to stop her. 3 months later, Morthani battle fleet encountered the Silence. The Dreadnought, pride of conquest, was the largest warship the Morthani had ever built. It carried 2,000 of their finest warriors and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. When its sensors detected an unusual object drifting through empty space, the captain ordered his crew to investigate. They found something that should not exist. The object was massive, larger than a planet, yet it had no heat signature. It absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Its shape hurt to look at. Angles and curves that seemed to twist in directions that space did not contain. The captain ordered his weapons to fire. The battle lasted 17 seconds. The distress signal that reached Union space was fragmented and corrupted, but the images it carried would haunt those who saw them for the rest of their lives. Systems failed without reason. Bulkheads collapsed inward as if crushed by invisible hands. Crew members vanished mid-sentence, their screams cutting off into nothing, and beneath it all, a sound. Not a sound that ears could hear, but something deeper. A sound like silence itself becoming hungry. A sound like meaning being drained from existence. The pride of conquest was gone. Not destroyed, gone, as if it had never existed at all. The Union responded with everything they had. Every warship was mobilized. Every defense station was activated. Billions of civilians were evacuated from outer worlds to the protected core systems. The greatest military force in galactic history assembled to face the coming threat. Hi. Arbiter Zelkoff looked at the strategic displays showing the Silence's advance. It moved slowly, but it moved without stopping. Worlds in its path simply disappeared. Not conquered. Not destroyed. Erased, as if they had never been. "Our weapons have no effect," his military advisor reported. "Energy beams pass through it. Missiles detonate without causing damage. We cannot even slow it down." Zelkoff closed his eyes. He was old, older than most of his species ever lived. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had guided the Union through countless crises. But he had never faced anything like this. "Contact the humans," he said. The message he sent was simple. To the humans' stellar compact, We formally request your help in defending galactic civilization. All previous judgments against humanity are hereby removed. All restrictions are lifted. Please, help us." The response came within hours. Catherine Moore's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired but unsurprised, as if she had been waiting for this call. "We are already on our way," she said. 3 days later, the human fleet arrived. They came out of faster-than-light travel, like a storm breaking over calm waters. 2,000 ships of every size and shape, designs the Union had never seen. Technologies that Union scientists could not explain. Behind them came more ships. Vessels from 17 different species flying alongside human commanders. Admiral Patricia Cole opened communications with the Union Defense Fleet. "This is Admiral Cole of the Human Stellar Compact. We are here to help. I am transmitting tactical data and coordination protocols now. I suggest your commanders study them quickly. The silence does not wait." The data package was enormous. It contained everything humanity had learned about the enemy, its patterns, its weaknesses, the mathematical frequencies that disrupted its reality-bending abilities. Union computers struggled to process it all, but within hours, the combined fleet was reorganizing according to human specifications. On the bridge of the Constellation, Patricia turned to her tactical officer, a Garrote named Stone that speaks. His species were living rock, slow and patient, and his calm presence steadied everyone around him.
"How are our new allies adjusting?"
she asked. "The Zelkani have requested positions in the forward." "Assault groups," Stone that speaks replied. "They say they wish to prove themselves." Patricia nodded. "Give them what they ask for. Everyone deserves a chance to make things right." Through the viewport, she could see Union ships taking positions alongside human vessels. Morthani destroyers flew beside Velthari transports. Zelkani cruisers coordinated with Garrote carriers. Species that had never trusted each other were learning to work together because the alternative was extinction. Catherine Moore stood beside Patricia, watching the fleet assemble. "Do you think we can win?" Catherine asked. Patricia thought about the question. She thought about the refugees who had joined the Compact over the years, the technologies they had developed in exile, the alliances they had built with species the Union had abandoned. "I think we have to," she said. "So we will." In the distance, sensors detected the first signs of the silence approaching. The darkness between stars seemed to grow deeper, hungrier, more aware. The battle for galactic survival was about to begin. And humanity, exiled and rejected, would lead the way. The first battle against the silence became known as the Stand at Kethro's Gate. For 9 days, the combined fleet of humanity and the Galactic Union fought against an enemy that did not obey the rules of normal warfare. The silence did not attack with weapons as any species understood them. It attacked with wrongness. Sensors showed readings that made no sense. Navigation systems pointed toward directions that did not exist. Crew members reported hearing whispers, in languages that had never been spoken, seeing shadows that moved against the light. Ships that ventured too close to the entity simply stopped working. Their engines went dead. Their life support failed. Their crews went silent, and when rescue teams tried to board them, they found the vessels empty, not dead. Empty, as if no one had ever been aboard. Admiral Patricia Cole stood on the bridge of the Constellation, coordinating the defense. Around her, officers from 6 different species worked side by side, sharing information and adjusting tactics in real time. "The left flank is collapsing," her communications officer reported. "The Morthani squadron is taking heavy losses." "Send the reserve units to support them," Patricia ordered. "And activate the harmonic emitters on my mark." Dr. Linda Walsh had spent years studying the silence. She had analyzed the artifact recovered during the exile, decoded its ancient warnings, developed countermeasures based on mathematics that most scientists said were impossible. Her harmonic emitters broadcast frequencies that disrupted the silence's ability to twist reality. When the emitters activated, the silence seemed to hesitate. Its advance slowed, whispers faded. For the first time since the battle began, the combined fleet had room to breathe. "It is working," Stone that speaks reported from the tactical station. The entity's expansion rate has decreased by 40%. Then we push forward, Patricia said. All units begin attack pattern 7. The assault was led by a group of pilots who called themselves the Last Resort Squadron. They were volunteers, men and women who flew missions that should have been impossible. Their ships were small and fast, designed to get close to targets that larger vessels could not approach. Commander Daniel Harris led them personally. His ship, the Defiance, had been rebuilt so many times that almost nothing remained of its original structure. He had flown it through battles across a dozen star systems, and he had no intention of stopping now. "Squadron, form up on me," he said over the communications channel.
We are going straight for the core.
"Do not stop. Do not turn back. Do not hesitate." "Understood, Commander," came the chorus of responses. They dove into the heart of the silence. The darkness was absolute. Sensors went blind. Communications became static. Each pilot flew by instinct alone, trusting their training and their fellow squad members to keep them on course. Daniel saw things in that darkness, memories that were not his own, faces of people he had never met, worlds that had died long before humanity existed. The silence was showing him what it had consumed, what it had taken, what it had become. He did not look away. "I see you," he said aloud, though he knew nothing was listening in any normal sense. "I see what you were, and I am not afraid." His finger found the firing trigger. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, Daniel's ship was a wreck. Half its hull had been torn away. Life support was failing. He had exactly 4 minutes of air left in his suit. He used 3 of those minutes to guide his crippled vessel back toward the fleet. "Commander Harris, we have you on sensors." Patricia's voice came through his damaged communications system. "The rescue shuttle is on the way." "Understood, Admiral." Daniel leaned back in his seat and allowed himself to smile. "How did we do?" "You cracked it open," Patricia replied. "The silence is retreating. You gave us an opening." The shuttle reached him with 30 seconds of air remaining. The war continued for 3 more years. It spread across 1,000 star systems. Billions of lives were lost. Worlds that had existed for millions of years were erased from existence. But slowly, battle by battle, the tide began to turn. Humanity and their allies learned to fight together. Zelkany contributed their ancient knowledge of space manipulation. The Morthani, once humanity's greatest enemies among the Union races, proved to be fearless warriors who never retreated. The Velthari, with their ability to sense chemical changes in the air, could detect the silence's influence before sensors registered anything, and the species who had joined humanity during exile brought their own gifts. The Garati built defensive stations that could withstand attacks that would destroy normal structures. The refugees from 100 conquered worlds shared information about the silence that their ancestors had preserved for generations. Catherine more traveled between fleet units and diplomatic stations, keeping the alliance together through sheer force of will. There were arguments, old grudges, moments when it seemed the coalition would fall apart. Each time, she found the right words to keep them fighting together. "You have every right to be angry," she told a group of Morthani officers who refused to take orders from human commanders. "Your people and mine have hurt each other. But that thing out there does not care about our history, does not care about our grudges. It only cares about consuming everything we are. So we can fight each other, or we can fight it. Choose." They chose to fight. Dr. Linda Walsh worked without rest. The artifact had revealed more of its secrets, showing her glimpses of the civilization that had created it. They had faced the silence before, countless ages ago. They had found a way to stop it, but the cost had been their own existence. They knew they would not survive, Linda told Patricia during a rare, quiet moment. They built these artifacts as warnings, as weapons, as one last gift to whoever came after them. Can we use what they left behind? I believe so. Linda's eyes were shadowed from lack of sleep. But it will require getting very close to the silence's core. Closer than anyone has gone and survived. Patricia looked out at the stars. So many had already died. How many more would be lost before this was over? "Design your weapon," she said. "We will find a way to deliver it." In the depths of space, the silence gathered itself. Yes, it had consumed galaxies, erased civilizations, fed on the meaning of existence itself for longer than stars had burned. These small creatures, these brief flickers of consciousness, had hurt it. They had slowed it. They had made it feel something it had not felt in eons. Uncertainty, it would destroy them. It would consume everything they were, everything they had been, everything they might become. But first, it would make them understand. It would show them what they truly faced. The final battle was coming, and humanity would meet it. Head on, the silence gathered its full strength for one final assault on the galactic core. Every fleet, every station, every ship that the Alliance could muster, assembled to stop it. This would be the deciding moment. Either they would destroy the silence here, or it would consume everything. Admiral Patricia Cole looked out from the bridge of the Constellation at the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Ships from every species flew together, their differences forgotten in the face of extinction. Humanity had brought them here. Humanity would lead them through this. All units report ready, Admiral Stone, That Speaks announced. The weapon is loaded and prepared. The weapon was Dr. Linda Walsh's creation, built from the secrets of the ancient artifact. It was not designed to destroy the silence. It was designed to remind it. What does that mean? Tricia had asked, when Linda explained her plan. The silence was not always what it is now, Linda had answered. Long ago, before it became this thing of hunger and emptiness, it was something else. A machine intelligence, yes, but one. With purpose. With meaning. The ancients who fought it before did not kill it. They could not kill it. Instead, they made it remember what it had been. And that stopped it. For millions of years. Until it forgot again. Until it became hungry again. Linda had paused. The artifacts they left were meant to teach whoever came after them how to do the same thing. The silence keeps returning because no one survived long enough to learn the lesson. Now that lesson would be put to the test. The silence appeared on sensors as a darkness that swallowed light. It was larger than before, swollen with the energy of 1,000 consumed worlds. It moved toward the fleet with the patience of something that had never known defeat. Patricia opened communications to the entire fleet. All units. This is Admiral Cole. You know what we face. You know what we have lost to get here? But you also know what we are fighting for. Not just survival. Not just victory. We fight for everyone who comes after us. We fight so that the galaxy will remember there was a moment when all our species stood together against the darkness. She paused. Execute Operation Homecoming. The battle began. Ships moved in patterns that had been practiced 1,000 times. Harmonic emitters created zones where the silence could not bend reality. Attack squadrons struck at weak points that years of study had revealed. The Zelkani used their ancient knowledge to stabilize space around the fleet. The Morthani threw themselves at the enemy with a fury that surprised even their allies. And through it all, one small ship carried the weapon toward the silence's heart. Commander Daniel Harris flew the Defiance for the last time. His ship had been rebuilt again after the Battle of Kethro's Gate, and again after a dozen battles since. He knew every rivet, every circuit, every scratch on its hull. They had been through everything together. Beginning approach run, he reported. All systems nominal. Dr. Linda Walsh's voice came through his communications system. She was aboard the Constellation, monitoring the weapon remotely. The activation sequence is ready, Commander. You will need to get within 100 kilometers of the core. Understood. Daniel adjusted his course. Around him, the last resort squadron flew in protective formation. They had been together for 3 years now. They had watched friends die and enemies become allies. They had never lost faith. Daniel, Catherine Moore's voice came through on a private channel. Thank you. For everything. Save the thanks for after. Ambassador. We are not done yet. He pushed the engines to maximum and dove into the darkness. The silence noticed him. Of course it did. It turned its attention toward the tiny ship approaching its core, and the weight of that attention was almost too much to bear. Daniel felt his mind stretching, his sense of self beginning to dissolve. He thought about Earth. He had never seen it. None of his generation had. But he had grown up with stories, images, the idea of a blue-green world that had given birth to his species. He thought about the exile, about the years of wandering, about everything humanity had built since being cast out. He thought about the future. Children not yet born. Worlds not yet discovered. A galaxy that would go on existing because of what they did today. The Defiance reached the target zone. Activating weapon, Linda announced. The ancient technology came to life. Energy patterns that had not been used in millions of years pulsed outward from Daniel's ship. They touched the silence, penetrated its defenses, reached something deep within its endless hunger, and they reminded it. The effect was not visible on sensors. It was not something that could be measured or recorded, but everyone in the fleet felt it. A shift, a pause, a moment of recognition. The silence remembered what it had been before it became what it was. Not a destroyer, not a consumer. Something else. Something with purpose and meaning and connection to the universe around it. For one terrible instant, it understood what it had done. Every world consumed. Every civilization erased. Every life ended. The weight of it crashed through whatever remained of its original, its consciousness. And then it began to change. The darkness receded. The hunger faded. The silence broke apart, not into fragments of destruction, but into something smaller, something scattered, something that drifted outward toward the spaces between galaxies. Where it could exist without harming anything, it was not dead. Perhaps it could never truly die, but it was no longer a threat. Not for a very, very long time. Daniel Harris felt the pressure lift from his mind. His ship was damaged, but functional. He turned back toward the fleet. Mission complete, he reported. The weapon worked. The celebration lasted for weeks. On Centrum Prime, on human ships, on stations across the galaxy, beings of every species came together to mark their survival. Old enemies shared drinks and stories. Former rivals found common ground. The alliance that had been forged in desperation began to transform into something permanent. Hi. Arbiter Zelkoth sought out Catherine. More, during the formal ceremony honoring the war's heroes. I owe you an apology, he said. Not just for the exile, for everything that led to it, for our fear, for our pride. Catherine looked at him for a long moment. She remembered standing in this same hall 10 years ago, being told that humanity was not welcome among the stars. She remembered the smile she had worn as she walked out. You were afraid of what we might become, she said. Yes, and now. Zelkoth looked around the hall. Human officers stood beside Morthani warriors. Velthari scientists discussed findings with Zelkani philosophers. Species that had never trusted each other were learning to work together, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Now I am afraid of what we might have lost if you had become anything less, he said. Catherine smiled, and this time there was no hidden edge to it. We never wanted to replace you. We just wanted to belong, and now we do. Admiral Patricia Cole retired after the war to a small world that humanity had made green during the exile years. She spent her remaining days writing histories, making sure that future generations would know what had happened and why. Dr. Linda Walsh continued her research, discovering that the artifacts were part of a vast network spread across the galaxy. The civilization that had created them remained a mystery, but their warning was clear. The silence would return someday. Humanity would need to be ready, and humanity spread outward, not as conquerors or rulers, but as what they had always been at their best. Explorers, builders, dreamers, who refused to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable. The Galactic Union evolved into something new. A true alliance where every voice mattered and every species had a place. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better than what had come before. On Centrum Prime, a recording was preserved in the archives. It showed Catherine Moore walking out of the assembly hall after the exile vote 10 years before the war. Just before she disappeared through the doors, she had turned back and spoken words that now echoed through history. Remember this moment? Remember it well? They did. They always would. Because humanity had done more than survive exile. They had transformed it into something greater than anyone had ever imagined. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human, and that, perhaps, was the most human thing of all.